Imagine a land sculpted by the sky, where peaks just pierce the clouds and the very air. Well, it hums with centuries of tradition.
That's a great way to put it.
Today, we're taking a journey to Tibet, the legendary roof of the world. We've got a fascinating video transcript as our main source here, and it offers this real window into, everything from its breathtaking geography to its deeply rooted customs and culture.
Yeah, and even the challenges, the very real challenges this high-altitude region faces.
Right.
And what's exciting about this deep dive, I think, is that we're not just like skimming the surface.
No.
You might have seen stunning visuals of Tibet, maybe heard it mentioned, but our aim is to really try and understand what makes this place so utterly unique.
Exactly. We want to pull out the most compelling insights about, say, its extreme environment, its profound spiritual heart, its rich cultural tapestry.
Give people a much more sort of nuanced picture.
Yeah. So where do we even begin with a place like Tibet? I guess the most immediate thing, the most striking aspect has to be the altitude, right?
Absolutely. The transcript really hammers home the geographical context first. This huge area in Central Asia dominated by these massive snow-capped mountains, rivers. But yeah, it's the sheer elevation that basically shapes everything else.
It really does. And it's not just being high up, is it? The source material makes it super clear that even just visiting can have pretty significant physical effects if you're not used to it.
Oh, definitely.
We're talking shortness of breath, that really heavy fatigue, headaches that just, won't quit.
Dizziness, too, sometimes.
Yeah, and dizziness. And it even pinpoints that critical threshold around 4,500 meters where the oxygen in the air really starts to become noticeably less.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we talk about oxygen deficiency at that height, what's happening biologically is, well, the partial pressure of oxygen is lower. Simple as that.
Right. Less oxygen per breath.
Precisely. So with each breath, your lungs take in less oxygen. Less gets into your bloodstream. It's a genuine physiological stress for anyone who hasn't acclimatized.
And the contrast with the local Tibetan population is just fascinating, isn't it?
It really is. Over generations, their bodies have actually adapted to thrive in this low oxygen environment in ways we're, frankly, only just beginning to fully grasp. The transcript even mentions, the practical need for oxygen tanks for tourists in some spots, which just drives home how extreme it is for outsiders.
It truly does. And, well, you can't talk about Tibet's altitude without immediately thinking of Mount Everest.
It's impossible.
The video transcript rightfully gives it, pride of place. World's highest mountain range, the reason for that iconic nickname.
It's the global landmark, isn't it? Synonymous with extreme height. Everest just captures the imagination, the physical challenge, what it represents.
Yeah, the ultimate mountaineering goal.
Exactly. But the transcript also brings in another peak, maybe less famous globally, but hugely significant. Mount Kailash.
Ah, right. Kailash.
Yeah. And this isn't just rock and ice. It's revered as the sacred home of Lord Shiva in Hinduism. And it holds deep spiritual importance in Buddhism, Jainism, the Bon tradition too. Millions of devotees, tourists, they're drawn there every year.
And the way the source describes it is just captivating. It emphasizes this, almost ethereal beauty and this profound feeling. People apparently don't want to leave once they've seen it.
I can believe that.
It even gives the elevation roughly 660 and 638 meters. Just trying to imagine standing there. It paints a picture of a truly awe-inspiring place, imbued with this deep spiritual energy.
Really does. Why do you think it holds such sort of universal sacredness across different faiths?
That's a great question. Maybe it's just the sheer majesty of the peak itself, inspiring that sense of the sublime.
Could be.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's how multiple faiths converge there, each layering their own stories onto the landscape. It definitely speaks to something deeply resonant about that mountain.
Yeah, definitely.
So, okay, we've explored the dramatic landscape. The transcript then kind of guides us into the unique customs and spiritual practices that evolved in this really extraordinary setting. And one of the most distinctive, I think we have to talk about it, is the practice of sky burial.
Okay, yeah, let's delve into this. Because it is a practice that can sound, quite striking, maybe even a bit unsettling if you're not familiar with it.
Understandably.
The video transcript explains it as a post-death ritual where the deceased's body is essentially ritually dismembered and then placed in specific spots for vultures to consume.
Right.
It's definitely a very different image of, dealing with death compared to what many of us know.
It is. But the transcript does a pretty good job, I thought, of outlining the Buddhist beliefs behind it. Central to it is the idea of the soul's transmigration, rebirth, right? So the physical body is seen as just a temporary vessel, something you ultimately discard.
Okay.
Plus, the extreme environment plays a huge practical role. Think about it. High altitudes, not much wood for cremation fires.
Right, scarcity of fuel.
Exactly. And the ground, often rocky, frozen solid.
Yeah.
Burying someone is incredibly difficult.
That makes complete sense when you put it in that context, the harsh realities of the terrain.
So sky burial becomes a very, pragmatic solution alongside its spiritual meaning.
And the source also touches on this idea of it being a form of profound generosity, a final act of self-sacrifice, offering the body back to nature, sustaining other living things.
Precisely. It really highlights a worldview where the physical body isn't the ultimate essence of a person. It's quite profound, actually.
It is. Very different.
And beyond this really remarkable ritual, the transcript also underlines the deep, pervasive influence of Buddhist monasteries and temples all across Tibet.
Absolutely. They're not just historical sites, are they? They seem like vibrant centers of spiritual life, community, learning.
Very much so. And one temple in particular gets a specific mention. The Jokhang Temple.
Ah, yes, Jokhang.
The transcript points out its ancient origins, its UNESCO World Heritage status, and its absolutely pivotal role as the most sacred religious center in Tibetan Buddhism.
It even calls it the heart of God, poetically.
It does. And it houses this revered Buddha statue that dates back to the 7th century. Just think about that.
Wow. That's incredible. A tangible link right back to the beginnings of Buddhism spreading in Tibet.
It truly is a living testament to centuries of faith. Now, shifting gears slightly, the transcript also gives us some fascinating glimpses into the broader cultural tapestry of Tibet, starting with its vibrant festival traditions.
Yes, the Tibetan New Year, often in February or March, it mentioned. And it sounds like a truly immersive experience.
Doesn't it?
Full of traditional clothes, intricate dances, that soul-stirring music, and naturally, the aromas of traditional foods.
It's that wonderful moment where cultural identity is just vividly on display, celebrated by everyone.
Yeah. And then there's the iconic Tibetan yak.
Ah, the yak. Can't forget the yak.
The transcript describes this amazing animal, perfectly adapted for that demanding high-altitude life.
It points out they're surprisingly carnivorous sometimes, besides grazing.
Oh, interesting.
And just absolutely essential for survival. Milk, meat, hides, and crucially, as these incredibly hardy pack animals for moving goods across those tough landscapes.
And who could forget the mention of yak butter tea?
Oh, yeah.
The description, creamy and sweet, and that little enthusiastic bit, oh, I, hoi, hoi, very best. It definitely makes you curious, doesn't it?
It really does. It highlights how even something simple like tea is deeply tied to the unique resources and traditions there. It's more than a drink. It's like a cultural marker.
Totally.
And probably essential, right? The high-fat content from the butter likely provides vital calories and energy in that cold climate.
Makes sense.
The transcript then takes us to Lhasa, Tibet's capital city, beautifully described as the abode of the gods.
That's such an evocative name. Really speaks to its history and spiritual significance.
It does. And dominating Lhasa's skyline, the magnificent Potala Palace.
Oh, iconic!
The source rightly calls it this powerful symbol of Tibetan culture, Buddhism.
Yeah.
Built way back in the 17th century.
Incredible architecture.
It's not just history. It's an architectural marvel, clinging to the mountainside. Another UNESCO World Heritage Site, standing at roughly 3,700 meters high. Can you just imagine the views?
It must be absolutely breathtaking, looking out over the city, the landscape.
Yeah. The transcript also touches on other sort of visual cultural elements, like the append dress, that distinctive striped apron married women traditionally wear, a clear visual identifier. And more practically, for visitors, it notes Tibetan as the main language, and the currency is the Chinese yuan.
Useful info.
Yeah, and it even gives a handy tip. Credit cards are getting more common in big hotels in Lhasa and Shigatse, but you definitely still need cash if you venture outside those main cities.
Good to know. Those are the kind of practical details that really help ground your understanding of a place.
Definitely.
Now, shifting focus a bit from the cultural and spiritual to just the purely visual, the video transcript also makes sure to highlight the sheer, raw, natural beauty of Tibet.
Oh, absolutely. The imagery that keeps coming up these ice-cold, majestic mountains set against the stunningly vibrant blue of the high-altitude lakes, it really sticks with you.
It does. Lake Manasorovar gets a specific mention, right? Its serene blue waters attracting pilgrims and tourists.
Yeah, and the picture it paints of campers by the shore with those snow-capped mountains as a backdrop, sounds utterly idyllic.
It really does evoke that sense of paradise, like the speaker in the transcript said. And then for those maybe looking for a more extreme adventure, there's the Mount Everest base camp.
Right. The transcript positions it as challenging, definitely, but incredibly rewarding for mountaineers, adventure lovers, offering those just unparalleled close-up snowy views of Everest.
But it also wisely reminds us about the lower oxygen levels again, that constant challenge.
Exactly. It's that constant interplay, isn't it? Extreme conditions versus almost otherworldly beauty. Seems to define so much of Tibet. The transcript even uses that phrase, work from heaven, to describe it for adventure lovers. That feeling of being somewhere truly sublime, awe-inspiring, even with the physical demands.
Which, unfortunately, kind of leads us to a more serious but incredibly vital aspect that the transcript highlights, the major environmental concerns Tibet is facing right now.
Yes, it confronts that directly. This urgent environmental crisis coming from the rapid melting of glaciers across the Tibetan Plateau.
And it explicitly links this to the bigger picture of global warming, the rise in Earth's average temperature. No ambiguity there.
None at all. And it doesn't shy away from listing some of the far-reaching consequences we're already seeing or expecting.
Like shifts in rainfall patterns.
The dangerous thawing of permafrost, the alarming rise in global sea levels. And it even draws a line to the increase in extreme weather events in places like India. It just underscores how interconnected our whole global climate system is.
It really does hammer that home.
Yeah. And maybe one of the most crucial messages, I think, that comes through in the transcript is this idea that protecting Tibet's fragile environment isn't just a local issue.
No, it's global.
It's a responsibility for the entire global community. It kind of elevates Tibet to this powerful symbol, doesn't it? Of the delicate balance between peace, harmony, and our relationship with nature.
A stark reminder of how localized changes can have worldwide impacts.
Yeah, it's a very sobering point, but essential.
It truly is. So as we start to wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key insights about Tibet that have particularly stood out to you from exploring this source?
For me, I think it's just the profound way the extreme environment has shaped almost everything about life in Tibet.
Yeah.
From the physical adaptations of the people, the practical reasons behind customs like sky burial, the types of animals that live there, even the spiritual beliefs that emphasize impermanence. The landscape is just this undeniable force. And then tied to that, just the sheer resilience and richness of the culture that has managed to flourish in such a challenging place.
I completely agree. It's such a land of breathtaking contrasts, isn't it? Where the raw survival needs at high altitude meet these soaring heights of spiritual devotion and incredible architecture.
Well said.
Hopefully you, our listener, have gained a much deeper appreciation for this extraordinary and, let's face it, complex region, maybe moving beyond some of the more surface level images you might have had before.
Yeah, we hope so. And that kind of leads us to a really important question for you to think about after this. Given these significant environmental challenges Tibet faces, especially that accelerating glacial melt, what does this tell us about how interconnected our world really is?
Yeah.
How does the fate of a place that seems so remote actually reflect on our shared global responsibility for all the diverse, delicate landscapes and cultures on our planet?
That's a powerful question. Definitely invites some deep reflection. This deep dive, while we covered a lot, it really has only scratched the surface of Tibet's long history, its amazing art, the ongoing story of its people.
How much more in there?
Absolutely. Yeah. We sincerely hope this exploration has maybe sparked your curiosity and inspired you to delve even further into this truly remarkable corner of our world.